guys, and welcome to Weekly Travel Updates. Well, I have a lot to tell you tonight, but there's just been a few funny things that happened this week. Well, first, not so funny, but Captain Kate is leaving Celebrity Cruise Line. She has been serving as the first female captain for 22 years, and she's leaving Celebrity for new heights. We're waiting to see what that's going to be. But she's a favorite of many. We did have our first overboard for 2025 this week, and it was a 32-year-old. He was a Filipino, and he was sailing as a crew member on the MSC Pisidia. It's just hard to hear. But remember, in December, we had like 6, and we've made it through January and February, and actually it was like Thursday of last week. So it was the end of February. Well, I told you guys about lots of things that have gone on in the cruise industry, but one of the things that we are still seeing are these scams. And, while they're mainly for the cruise lines, in several places, they're happening just in major cities like Barcelona. I'll when I get to that number, I'll remind you what might be going on in cities other than just Caribbean cruise ports. But here are the latest 15 cruise scams that are going on right now. You walk into a touristy area and somebody slides on a bracelet, a friendship bracelet. They say it's free. They say it's free until you get it on your arm, and then they want money. It's the same thing with accepting free lavender. Many cities in Europe, it's that time of year. So in the springtime and early summer, they may give away pieces of lavender. It's just walk on, and as if you didn't see it, because they are not going to quit until they get something from you. The second thing is, this has been long running, but I experienced on our trip in January, and that's the photo scam, where, you come off the ship and you're bebopping down the walkway, and here's the first sign that says Antigua, and there are 2 natively dressed women, maybe brightly colored outfits, and they want you to make their picture with them. One of our cruise passengers, Daryl Carter, he'll take all the pictures with women he can get. So he said, "Here, Melinda, take my camera. I'm gonna get a picture with them," and he did. He didn't ask them how much it was, but as he started to walk away, they said, "Sir, we work out here on tips," and so I think he gave them $3 or $4. But anyway, just be aware, it's just like the statues that you see all over Europe. And if you try to get a picture of that statue, there's somebody that's painted silver from head to toe, and they're standing on a box, and they're very still until somebody puts money in their hat or their box, and then they'll tip their hat or they'll do something as a gesture of gratitude. Well, if you try to make photos with these guys without paying them, they're almost rude. I watched a few this week. So just be aware that they're there. They expect money if you make a picture with them, and you should be copacetic. All right. Then there's several reports of this lately. You go into a cruise port, or for that matter, it could be anywhere, but primarily it's been in the Caribbean, and you find a gorgeous bag that you want, a purse. one of the YouTubers that I watch, she purchased a purse, and somebody else was friendly and speaking to her while the other lady was wrapping it up. Well, when she got back on board ship, it was not the correct purse. It was a much lower priced purse, and certainly not what she expected. So just keep an eye on it. When I go on a cruise, a lot of times I'm buying jewelry. So, it's pretty easy to keep your eye on jewelry, but watch to make sure that you're not getting cheated or somebody's taking advantage of you with a bait and switch. The next thing, and this is bouncing all over everywhere, since the EU have announced the visa requirements, there are an abundance of fake visa websites. Now, they're not charging much. Of course, if you go to the EU website, it's only €7. So not much. If they're paying somebody the €7, then everything over that they're charging you, they're just making his profit. But more than that is, you don't want to give this kind of information to a third party when it can be so easily done on the UK's website. I'm putting together a YouTube that I'm going to have all of these links and websites to, and it's going to be called Traveling in 2025. So be out in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I've written all the script. Now I just have to work it up. Okay. Then the cruise duck scam. A couple years ago, and for many years, they had this game where you found a rubber duck, and, it could be on any cruise line. Well, Disney stopped it maybe a year and a half ago. And then other cruise lines followed suit where, they don't want these cruise ducks all over their ships anymore. So supposedly, according to this report that I read, there were 11 cruise sites that are selling cruise ducks. And one of the sites was reported because they paid the money and never received the ducks. The same website was reported again weeks later. And here's what you need to watch out for. If they don't accept a credit card, don't use them, because the credit card is what protects you. They are they want Cash App or a Cash App payment, Venmo, Cash App, that sort of thing. That should just be a warning sign to us from now on, because any legitimate business would take credit cards. It's just a part of doing business in the United States. So be aware of those. But this duck cruise sale, it's almost as crazy as the next one. Not only do the cruise lines don't want them on their ships anymore. It's not a thing really anymore. It's kind of worn off. So not only do you not want that, but there are people who are trying to resell their travel. Let's say something came up and they couldn't go, and they're saying, I purchased this 2-week cruise and now we can't travel. We're willing to sell it at a highly discounted rate. And they're getting people who have done this and who have been ripped off, because there's not really a way for you to, if I decide not to go on a cruise, I can't sell my cruise to my next door neighbor, because you would have to change the names. And when you change the names, you don't get the same price. It's as if you booked a new reservation. So it's not even something that would be acceptable in this industry. Just don't do it. Then there is 2 or 3 people out there, and they've been found out on the meetup Facebook groups prior to a cruise. And one specific that was a warning was somebody selling painting classes while you're on board your Norwegian cruise line. And she gives the dates. I'm going to be sailing on this, and I'm doing a painting class, and it's only $25. And I'm providing all of the equipment, paints, brushes, et cetera, canvas. Just sign up here. Well, people signed up. They thought, well, since this is a website or a Facebook group for everybody who's going on this sailing, surely somebody wouldn't scam, sailors from the same sailing, but they are. They paid a mere $25, but for some people, it's all about the principle. They just got scammed because there was no painting class on board the ship. So the aftermath when people returned was somebody barking at this person who now has left the group, and it was probably a fake name to begin with. So if you're going to do something on board ship, I would suggest you look at what is on board, decide what you want to do. If you want to prepay for it, great, but it would be something I'd buy from the cruise line. For sure, not a third party, and not somebody who just accepts Zelle, Cash App, or PayPal. Okay. Another scam, and I was surprised about this. It doesn't really surprise me. I can see it happening, but some person will come up to you when you're in port and they'll say, "Oh, I'm your waiter on board ship," or "I waited on you at the bar last night, and I want to show you my family's store. It's right here." And if you fall for that, okay. By the second day, I know what my waiters look like, but maybe these people don't. Anyway, it has happened enough times that it's been reported to Cruise Lines International Association, which is CLIA. And that's why I'm bringing this to you, because there were just lots of incidents that could be avoided. It was in a port, and you have to use your own judgment. I just know that the people reported that a gentleman, dark hair, which could be a Italian on the ship working, had reportedly gone up to several people within the day, and somebody had reported it, and they watched him, and sure enough, that's what he was doing. Okay, then unmetered taxis. In lots of places, it will have a flat fee, a flat cost. Look for those, but if you don't see those, certainly do not get in a taxi and negotiate it after you're in the taxi. I want to know what it's going to cost me to get from point A to point B, and if I'm not going to be there long, what it will cost me for you to bring us back. You want to negotiate that all up front, because what they're doing is they're taking you and then demanding this very high cost. Or the example that was given was they thought that the ship to the port terminal, for them to do a little excursion, they thought that it was going to be $30. It was a 20-minute ride. But when he got them there, it was $30 per person, or that's what he said. And now he has them stranded far away from the ship. And what are you going to do? Probably pay it. Okay, the next one is fake cruise miles. I really couldn't even believe this was a thing, because cruises don't have miles. They don't go by miles. It's not like that. So if you see cruise miles for sale, supposedly this was a Ponzi scheme, and the guy sold about 180 people on this cruise miles package, and there never were any cruise miles. He's in jail now, but this was just a prime example. Then, have you ever run late for your cruise and called the cruise line like a good cruiser would and say, "Hey, we're running late. Our Check-in time is at 1 p.m. Looks like we're not going to get there until 2 or whatever. Off by 1 digit from the cruise line's phone number, this YouTuber, her name is Gen X, you could look her up. She was told that it was a charge of $150 per person to change her arrival time for the cruise ship. Well, number one, that's just baloney. There is not a change fee, but $150 per person. She gave her name and that sort of information, but when it got to, we need your credit card, then she knew that something was bogus because the cruise line already had her credit card. Anyway, just one more thing to watch out for. Number 11 is called the room key snag. So many cruise lines, when you get on board, your room key is right outside of your door. Like, here's your door. There's a little card holder, and that's where your room key is. So when you get to your cabin, you take your room key out. There's one for you, one for your cabin mate, and you go in your cabin. But here recently, there have been a rash of cruise keys being missing. Now, not usually both keys, only one key is missing. And for a story this week, there was a cruise passenger who, when they went down to customer relations to the purser's desk to find out what was going on, she had just gotten to her room. She hadn't been on the ship for more than 35 minutes, and there was already $180 on her sign-in sale card. They had champagne. So while I've never heard of this happening, and I've never had a problem with my room keys not being there, I could see that it could happen. We'll see if they continue to put the room keys on the outside of your door. But currently, that's what the majority of them do. They're waiting for you in a slot outside of your door where you might receive messages or invitations or things like that. Anyway, number 12 is a cruise resale. Now, there are only a few ways that you can buy a cruise. You can buy a cruise from the cruise line. You can buy a cruise from a travel agent or agency. But you don't ever call it a resale. We're reselling this cruise. And this is happening on Craigslist. I just told you a little bit ago, it's not possible for you to change names without a fee. And if you change both names on the cruise, it's as if you're booking from scratch right now. So this is just, don't fall for this. I don't think a lot of savvy travelers would, but because some people have and it was listed as a complaint, cruise reselling is not a thing. It's not even allowed. And here's another thing that's going on. Number 13, fake resort passes. You know, when you go on a cruise and you get off on an island, Caribbean majority of the time, you can buy resort passes where you can go hang out at this resort with a pool and a bar and food maybe. And it's one price for you to come in and hang out there. Well, in Costa Maya, this has happened, and this is where it was noted. In Costa Maya, from the cruise ship to go over to the resort that does the resort passes, it's an all-inclusive property, and the taxi drivers are saying, hey, I can sell you the same resort pass, the entrance to this all-inclusive, and it's only $30 a piece for the day. Well, if you price the resort pass, let's just use something in the Bahamas. If you price the resort pass in the Bahamas, it'll be an all-inclusive on the beach with the pool, and it might be $28 per person for the day, but you have to get there yourself. So these taxi drivers are taking advantage of that, and they are selling fake tickets. You get up to the gate of the resort that they just dropped you off at, and that taxi driver's gone. Your money's gone. There is no advance resort pass ticket that these two resorts in Costa Maya are offering. So these people just simply lost their money. Then number 14 is it just becomes a season of fake YouTubes. If you've seen the YouTubes that says new rules, don't be denied, new luggage requirements. These are AI generated and they're providing fake information. It is not true. You really should check with the airline that you're flying on to have the most accurate information, and check it again days before you leave to be certain that nothing's changed. I have friends who got all the way to Raleigh for a very extensive trip. I didn't book their trip, but they got all the way to the airport, and because they had not checked in online with the airline, they didn't know until the morning of their departure that their reservations were canceled and they didn't even have a flight. Now, if you'd have found out that 3 days before departure, because if you're traveling internationally, you can check in 72 hours in advance, then they would have known and it wouldn't have been a big deal. Or it might have been a big deal, but it wouldn't have been a big deal that it was of getting to the airport thinking that you're going on a cruise for 2 weeks and finding out it was canceled. The last one, number 15, is bottled water. Now, I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but this was listed in more than one cruise port, including some European ports. So I'm going to tell you what's happening. You will walk off the cruise ship and it's hot and you're thirsty, and boy, a bottle of water sure sounds good. And it's only €2 or $2. Here's what's happening. Locals are reclaiming those used water bottles, and they're refilling them with local water and selling them back up with a lighter. Yuck. I hope that it never happens to you in Mexico, because that would be the worst place for it to happen to you. But I hope it doesn't happen to you anywhere. You know, on our sailing in January, I was the only one who carried one off the ship, but I was also the only one who always had something cold to drink. I carried a tall, like Stanley cup. Now, I won't carry that kind again, where it has a side handle, because when it was full, you couldn't really carry it by the side. You're sloshing your water or punch or whatever it is you're carrying. But I will continue to carry a refillable cup. It costs you nothing to go to the breakfast buffet. Here's what I do. I fill my cup half with ice. I push orange juice, apple juice, passion fruit, punch, and I fill it up. And then that's what I drink all day. If I have to add a little water to it later in the day, no big deal. If I am off the ship and it's getting kind of low, well, if I just buy a water and fill it with my juice, at least it's flavored water. It's just a way not to run into this kind of thing. And the other thing is, you know, it's getting more and more where you just shouldn't buy hardly from street vendors. It is dangerous. That would be very dangerous if you were in Mexico and you got sick off of what you thought was just a bottled water. Well, I've kind of gone long tonight, but thanks for hanging out. I did want to tell you, dang, what else was on our list? What else was under there? I told you about Carnival. Oh, no, I didn't tell you about Carnival. Carnival has changed their rules. I hope you don't have a Carnival cruise booked for your younger person for spring break, because prior to last week, you could get away with it. Now, you cannot go on a Carnival cruise unless you are 25 years old or traveling with somebody who is your kin. Gone are the days are this mom and dad's going to take the daughter and somebody else's daughter. They're not going to allow it. It has to be a familial relationship to you, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle. You cannot just pile up a bunch of young adults, and as long as there's one person in each cabin over 25, think that it's okay anymore. It's just not going to happen. The way around this is if you're married and you're under 25, then they feel like you're responsible enough and you get to sail. If you are traveling with your parents, but they are not on the cabin right beside you, there's just a form that you have to fill out to say that you will have adult supervision while you're on the ship. Okay. And the third thing was Royal Caribbean has really upset some people. So Royal Caribbean has really gone up in value because their ships were full all year. Their stocks are now worth close to $250 a share. However, this year they have made the decision to focus on new cruisers. And by focusing on new cruisers, they have put all of their newest ships for 3, 4, and 5 night sailings. Well, if you're a loyal to royal kind of cruiser, you know where you get for 4, 5, and 6 night sailings? You get to go to the Bahamas. And more than half of their sailings now include a Royal Caribbean private island experience. They have a perfect day at Coco Cay in the Bahamas. They have a perfect day in Mexico. When you're doing a 4-day sailing and you're cruising over on day 1 and day 2 is at perfect day at Coco Cay and day 3 is at Nassau and you're due back in the next day, there just isn't time to go much of anywhere else. But for sure, the 7-day Eastern Caribbean and 7-day Western Caribbean, those are gone. Those are gone. I've got clients who they are very loyal to Royal, but short of Alaska, there are no Caribbean 1-week sailings for much of this year. Now there's some little longer ones. There's some 9 nights. There's some 10 nights. There's some 12 nights, but the 7 nights are few and far between. And almost all of them were repositioning trips, not going and returning to the same port of call. That's just really hard. That's really hard for people who love Royal Caribbean to not have very much choice. I'm glad we switched over to Celebrity this past January, and we're going back next January. And at the moment, we are completely full. I have no more balconies available. I do have some inside cabins, and I have a few ocean view cabins. But our January 3rd 8-night Eastern Caribbean is all but full. So if you have interest in going, reach out to me, instant message me, or direct message me. I would be happy to talk to you about it. I think that now I've hit my list, but guys, just be aware of all of I kind of skipped over catastrophic events this week. You know, Kilauea in Hawaii they had some explosions this week from eruptions, and one of them shot lava more than 250 feet in the air. So it seems like it's getting more powerful, not less powerful. Also, I talked to a customer today about Alaska, and I usually go to Alaska and take a group. I'm not going to do it this year. I have decided that with the multitude of earthquakes that are happening, it's called the Ring of Fire, from the very most northern parts of Alaska down all the way to San Francisco. There looks like there have been a continuous strand of earthquakes this past week, more than 1,000 in that area this week. I just think I'm going to avoid Alaska this year. We are going to do Hawaii in 2026, and it's going to be a professional development journeys trip. So maybe you can go along with us, and I will show you how to write it off of your taxes. Well, I'm Melinda Fargas, and you have spent some time with me this week on weekly travel updates. Please go over to my YouTube page and subscribe or like it. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. I will talk to you later. Ciao.